Right now, most likely you haven't experienced how nice it can be to be a video editor just yet. That's because you're working with not so good clients who are annoying and who are not paying you very well. But the truth is, there are clients out there who, first of all, can actually get you to 5 to 10K per month because they can afford to pay you very well and can afford to pay what you're worth, but also they're gonna be a pleasure to work with. So all you need to do is to just figure out how to escape these shitty ones and start landing the good ones. Like, I've literally experienced this exact thing myself. A couple of years ago, I remember I had this video that I was getting paid $350 for, and how it happened is I basically delivered the video according to what the client was asking me to do, right? And then I got hit with hundreds of revisions just because turns out the client couldn't communicate what they actually wanted out of the video. And on top of that, they gave me a very tight deadline to turn around all those revisions. So I was literally working there all day. It was a pretty long video as well. I was working all day for like 3 to 4 days straight just on that video, trying to get it done in time, trying to implement all of those revisions. And in contrast, the videos that I've gotten paid $2,500 for are the complete opposite. I have the creative freedom on that video to do whatever I feel like doing. The client trusts me. They actually pay me because they trust me and because they know I'll do a really good job on that video. There are no revisions, everything is outlined perfectly. The client actually communicates really well what they like, what's good for the channel. So I'm able to, make informed decisions while editing, and then I don't get any revisions. Basically, it's a bliss. And I'm noticing the exact same thing even with the guys who I'm coaching who are getting really good results, because when they are just starting out and they aren't making that much money per month, they are working with shitty clients who obviously not only can't afford to pay them very well, but also are a headache to deal with. And then as they're making progress, they're landing clients who not only are paying them very well, but also are a pleasure to work with. And the first thing to doing that is your positioning. So how you position yourself. What I see so many editors who are maybe not even just starting out, but who haven't been able to start landing these really good clients just yet, the mistake they're making is that they're positioning themselves as generalists. And the thing is, high-paying clients only look for specialists. So if you position yourself, if on your portfolio you have both long form, short form, different niches like talking heads, faceless documentaries, not a single high-paying client is actually gonna pay attention to you, is gonna take you seriously, and will be down to try working with you. Because those clients look for someone who's only doing the thing that they're looking for, because then that editor is actually going to be really good at this specific type of content they're looking to produce. And how I would choose this niche or even content type that you want to specialize in, I would just think about what you enjoy editing the most. The good thing about video editing is there are so many content creators out there, and in every single content type, in every single niche, you can be making good money if you are a good editor. In terms of how to actually make yourself a specialist and how to find a niche, a type of content that you want to specialize in, I would recommend not to go for faceless videos, just because if you think about faceless videos, the whole business model is to pay the team as little as possible, and there is no personal brand, personal face attached to those videos. So I think your leverage as a video editor is basically non-existent there. So if you want to hit 5 to 10K per month with editing, it's probably still doable, I wouldn't doubt that, but you're sort of like shooting yourself in the foot, because in some other content types like talking head, IRL/vlog, or even gaming, it's gonna be easier. But beyond that, honestly, I would just look at what you enjoy editing the most. If we don't take into account faceless videos, I think in all the other niches and in all the other content types, basically you can get to 5 to 10K per month everywhere, no matter what, if you're good at editing. And how you become good at editing, or I should say specifically in that niche, because that's what the high paying clients are looking for, is by climbing the client's ladder. And you're gonna climb the client's ladder by becoming a specialist in that niche. So essentially, you just see what you enjoy editing, because I think that's the number one thing for longevity and for being consistent and for being reliable in your for your clients, not burning out while editing, actually editing the content that you enjoy. And after that, after you choose that, you change all of your positioning, so all of your social media profiles, everything on your portfolio to be tailored to just that specific niche. And at that point, you're basically a specialist. So if a high-paying client comes across you, they're gonna be willing to at least give you a shot. At least your chances are gonna be so much higher than if you had a bunch of other random stuff on your portfolio or on your social media profiles. At the beginning, in that new niche, you might need to do some free work, but long term, it's gonna be so worth it. And over time, half a year later down the line, you're gonna be actually so thankful to yourself that you did it, because you're gonna be essentially swimming in clients in that niche, because you're gonna be a specialist, and every single client who wants a video done within that niche is gonna be coming to you. And this is the second point I want to bring up, because landing that client is actually only one part of the equation. After that, you need to actually deliver the video. And I think the biggest thing for that is adaptability. So adaptability is the second trait you have to develop if you want to escape the shitty clients, because every single high-paying client wants you to be adaptable. So what happens with high-paying clients is they usually have some sort of processes, or just they know what's already working. They have that in place. They just need you to execute. They don't need you to do the generic style you're doing for all the other clients. They need editing tailored specifically to them. And like I said, usually they even have processes already, so they're going to be able to explain you how that editing tailored specifically to them actually looks like. But it's your job to be adaptable, to not be lazy, not just copy paste your editing from all the other clients, but do what this specific client is asking for, because they genuinely do know better, at least at the beginning. Then later down the line, when you're building the relationship with this client, it's going to be your job to even improve upon that. But when you just started working with them, it's your number one priority to listen to them and really adapt to what they're looking for in an editor, instead of just doing things the way you're used to doing things, just because it's easier for you and you don't want to change all that much. The next thing you gotta understand when it comes to adaptability is that it's actually not fun for clients to give you revisions. They would prefer to not do it at all, because you see the situation from your perspective. You're an editor, you made the video, you spend a bunch of time on it, you sent it to the client, you think it's good, but then they hit you with a bunch of revisions. And that's literally all you see. But from their perspective, do they really want to give you those revisions? They would rather have you send a perfect video right away and they just go ahead and publish that video on their YouTube. That would be their dream case scenario, but unfortunately, which is totally fine, you just didn't get the video right from the first try. So they need to spend time watching the video, then reviewing the video, which takes at least a couple of hours usually, and then waiting for you to implement the revisions again, and then rewatching it again, making sure that it's fine, from the second try. So your job when it comes to adaptability is to learn from those revisions and sort of adapt to the client's way of thinking, because all the processes they're going to give you initially, after you adapt to those, still you're going to be getting revisions, and you need to adapt. You need to understand the client's way of thinking. You need to understand their target audience. High-paying clients are usually really good at explaining all of that stuff, what they're actually looking for, but it's your job, and this is your expertise essentially as a video editor, to tailor your services specifically to them by being adaptable and by getting fewer and fewer revisions with every single video. That is a huge selling point, and it's gonna make the high-paying client actually stick to you and work with you long term. Because if you think about it, on the first video, they had to spend 4 hours doing revisions. Then on the second video, they had to spend 2 hours doing revisions. On the third one, it's 1 hour. Then 10 videos later, before you know it, you're getting like one small revision and they aren't spending time doing them at all. So if you think again from the client's perspective, if they want to hire a new editor, they would need to go through that whole process again. from video 0 to video 10 to the point where they're actually not getting revisions, and spend all that time, this huge amount of time, giving them revisions. So you actually become so much more valuable because you basically adapted your editing to this specific client and you're doing exactly what they're looking for, and that literally makes you 10 times more valuable. So your number one priority is to be getting fewer and fewer revisions with every single video, but also adaptability even comes from adapting to how the client's content is changing over time. So the biggest thing is to not just stagnate, and the client might be trying out a new type of videos or the new format of videos, or the whole niche can be changing and the client needs to adapt to that in order to keep getting a lot of views. Again, that's your job as a video editor to not just fall back into your old patterns, and the client usually is going to communicate that to you because they're a good client to work with, they're a high-paying client, they're someone who's actually worth building a relationship with. But it's your job, and this is where your expertise comes in, because at that point you already know what the client likes, you already know what their target audience likes, and now you need to adjust your editing to this new change that has happened. A also useful thing for that is even to literally just check YouTube comments under your client's videos. Sometimes people will talk about editing, sometimes it's good things, which is awesome, but sometimes viewers will actually mention some things that can be improved in terms of editing, and that's the most valuable feedback you can get because the viewers are exactly who you're editing for. And what I would do is I would just bring up that comment to the client, ask if they actually think that this is something that needs to be addressed, and then you address that in your editing. You don't make that mistake in the future. So at this point, you're already going to be well on your way to build an awesome relationship with this client and actually make this something long-term, where you don't need to hustle every month and start every month from zero and look for a new high-paying client that's going to get you through this month. No, you just become more and more valuable with this client. You actually, over time, you build your value up by implementing all this thing on adaptability. But another thing that you need to have, that's literally a must-have when it comes to getting your value up over time and building a long-lasting relationship and scaling to 5 to 10K per month sustainably without burning out or editing content you absolutely hate, is reliability. Obviously, reliability is all about meeting deadlines, but I actually want to dig a bit deeper into that. So how you want to see things is from this client's perspective, the high-paying client that you already have, right? And how it works for them is they have a YouTube video that they're producing, and there is always a cost to produce a video. Obviously, that's going to be their time, which is, in monetary, but it's going to be something like to come up with an idea and maybe then to record the video. But also there are going to be an actual production cost. So it's going to include you as an editor, then it's going to be probably something like a thumbnail designer, and maybe they're going to have someone who writes scripts. And let's say the whole budget, the whole production cost for the video is $2,000. But once they publish that video, they know that on average, every single YouTube video makes them 5K. So imagine if you literally just had this opportunity to basically give someone 2K and they give you 5K back. You would spam that button. You would literally do that all day, every day. And this is the exact situation which the high-paying clients you're really looking to land, the consistent and the long-term ones, are in. So they would always like to produce more videos because that's literally how they make more money. And I think such an underrated thing to do here in this position as a video editor is to streamline your workflow for this specific client. First of all, what that's gonna do is that's gonna make you more reliable because you're gonna be less likely to miss deadlines. Also, that's gonna literally let you have more time to enjoy life, which at the end of the day, that's the purpose of everything. But on top of that, you're gonna have some extra time to improve on the quality, which is something that's very important as well. And even coming back to the previous point about adaptability, where you need to be evolving your editing over time, you need to be not stagnating. For that, you need time. And if your workflow is not streamlined for this specific client, you just aren't going to be able to do it. So in terms of your workflow, Personally, I even have different workflows for every single client because after a couple of videos, you realize how these videos work and how editing sort of works there. So I would not be afraid to adjust even different parts of your workflow. Like for example, cutting and music. For some clients, I would do music as the last part of my editing workflow. For some clients, I would do music while doing cutting because it is a very important part of their videos. But changing up your workflow like that, depending on specific clients' videos, helps a ton, and it also compounds over time. Another huge thing that I absolutely love, that to be fair, kind of changed my life because it just made my editing so much better and so much faster, is this thing I like to call a base file. So I have two base files for each client. First of all, their Premiere base file. It's literally called base.proj, so Premiere project file. And then for After Effects, the same thing, base.aep. And in those files, in the base file for Premiere, I have things like sequences of adjustment layers. If you know, you do transitions and then there are a bunch of adjustment layers, and it's way easier to copy paste those instead of saving them as presets and then creating all the adjustment layers manually. Or the same thing with sequences of sound effects. You're gonna find yourself reusing similar sequences of sound effects from one video to another. And it's just so much nicer to put all of those sound effects together and then just copy and paste them over to your current project instead of pulling them one by one, these sound effects files, and assembling them every single time, just because that takes extra time. And in the After Effects project file, it would be all things animations related, shitload of templates for animations, some assets that you again see yourself just reusing from one video to another. The bigger idea here is that you never be afraid to do some work up front. So with these base files, right, how it happened is I was working with this client for probably half a year at that point, and I just saw myself redoing similar things from one video to another, and I thought to myself, damn, I'm editing these weekly videos and it's taking me 2 hours with every single video to do stuff that can literally be optimized or at least streamlined to the point where it's going to be taking me 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. And if you just compound these a couple of hours weekly, it adds up, and I can be spending those a couple of hours on actually improving the quality with every single video, and that would lead to me making a lot more money in the future, which is exactly what happened, to be fair. But the problem was that it takes a bit of time to set this whole thing up, right? To organize all the assets for the client. So what I did is, first of all, created those two base files. Then I created a proper folder on my computer just for that specific client with all the presets. I went through all the projects, collected the presets that I see myself reusing from one video to another, collected all the assets that are useful for this specific client. That maybe took me a day, which is why I was procrastinating on it for so long, I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, half a year into working with this client, I got an idea to do something like this, but then it took me a couple of months to just do it, to just get myself to do it, because how it would happen, like I know exactly what happens. Probably the same thing you're experiencing right now, where you finish a video, you obviously want to go just chill out, and then the next day you get another video, and it makes way more sense to start on that video instead of trying to optimize something, right? But it was literally the best decision ever to sit down, spend a day on all these optimizations, because it ends up saving you so much time, and you're looking to make this a long-term relationship. So it's going to be so beneficial to you, whether you do it through base files, whether you do it through presets, or through everything else all together. It's going to be a huge unlock for you in terms of your time, and I just highly recommend you do that thing, because it genuinely improved my workflow with every single client so much, which allows you to over-deliver with every single video while having time to live your life, and that's just the perfect formula for actually making this sustainable and making 5 to 10K per month with editing while not burning out. Now, if you need my personal help with everything that we talked about in this video, but also much more aspects that actually come into you scaling to 5 to 10K per month. If you need my personal help with that, go click the first link in the description, fill out the application, and based on your results, based on your answers, you're going to be redirected to the exact thing you need that's going to be right for you in order to get you to 5 to 10K per month. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.